Deep Dive Film School makes no claim of ownership of the film footage used in this episode. The film footage is owned entirely by the copyright holders. Also, we're going to spoil the hell out of this movie, so this is your warning. Welcome to Deep Dive Film School!
Oh, this week we're going to get into that one scene from Christopher Nolan's Memento.
Let's dive on in. All right, everybody, I am Adam Sherlock.
And I'm Adam Palcher.
And if you like what you see /here, please like and subscribe. You can find us in all the spaces and places people find good media.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, or bad media, all the media. Basically just a fire hose of all different kinds of media.
Are we in the good part?
I hope so. I hope so.
All right. Well, you let us know.
Yeah.
Feel free to comment, subscribe in all places you get a podcast, subscribe on YouTube, all of the things.
Yes.
All right. So that one scene from the one and only Christopher Nolan, I think
2001? Is that right?
I think 2000.
Oh, okay.
And his brother too. I mean, I think his brother, although he's gone on to do a ton of shit, and I'm sure it's very comfortable.
Yeah.
They've really been like a team.
Yeah.
And this was his second movie.
Yeah. But really the debut for most people.
Yes, absolutely.
Following was still a small indie film.
Yeah, the only reason people saw that is because this came out afterwards to see like, oh, whoa, this guy is trippy. Like, what is he doing? Like, just the structure of a movie like this is bonkers.
Yep.
And it's this big puzzle piece, but it's so fun. And before we get into the context of the scene, just the special uniqueness of something like this truly is just like how he's telling the story. Right,
because we basically have two things happening. We have a black and white, almost just...
It's like a flashback kind of...
It's almost a monologue, because it's really just him in his hotel room kind of talking to somebody on the phone.
Who we never find out who.
About his condition, about like sort of who he is. It's setting up a lot of the rules.
Exposition, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the movie is reverse chronological in what? Probably about 5-minute increments.
Yeah.
5 to 7 minute, sometimes even less, increments that are in reverse the whole time. And so there's this gimmick where we end one of those color sequences, we go back to the black and white. When we come back to the next color sequence, it's something that's happened earlier, but there's always a tell. It doesn't start directly from the next one. It has a little lead over from the last one.
And that's Nolan picking and choosing which parts of the story he wants to tell us and when.
Right. And it's a little it makes it a little impenetrable than I'm thinking of something like 21 grams, right? Where it's like...
No, it's a great example.
21 grams is like, figure it the fuck out, asshole. Whereas this is like, hold on, we're going to help you. We're going to help you. This is the sort of paint by numbers of how this is working.
Yeah, and I don't... the part of the beauty of this movie is when you double take and question yourself of like, wait, what? Because they make it confusing. Jonathan Nolan writes it confusing.
Yeah,
and it's it is a more cohesive thing than 21 grams for sure.
Yeah.
And I do love 21 grams.
And, me too.
And that's something that you have to figure out. But here, I've never quite seen anything told this way, where it just keeps folding on itself, and the whole premise of him having short-term memory loss, and us as an audience, after the first scene, knowing more than he does.
Yes.
But still them trying to trick us into knowing as much as he does.
Well, and then because we're in this kind of, pseudo-noir mystery that, again, to your point, unravels even further the longer that we get into it. I think Joey Pants is a great character who continues to let us know that Leonard is not just the unreliable narrator you might think you know, but even more so that, like, nothing that he believes is true, right?
Which is
like
why he gets the tattoos.
Right, exactly. But those.
But yeah, we see him being manipulated, and I'm so glad we ended up choosing this scene because it does encapsulate a lot of his vulnerabilities in the movie. and showing that you can't always trust what you see.
Right.
With Carrie-Ann Moss's character.
Well, because Carrie-Ann Moss's character, when we first meet her, and we were just talking about this kind of before we started recording, we were talking about how, I always liked her in the Matrix movies and things like that, but boy, to have her be this kind of rough around the edges, like, barmaid kind of a thing. Like, it's just a different vibe, and she's so damn good here.
Yeah, I wish she was in more stuff.
I agree, and she's so, in particular in this movie, to flex these different kinds of acting muscles to be, we think she's one kind of a person. And in this sequence, this is the I've got to find something to write with sequence.
Or it's can you get angry?
It's really can you get angry, but it ends with the I've got to find something to write with.
Yes.
Is so duplicitous and amazing because we start with her, the sequence, it's not the first sequence, it's the later sequence, which is she comes in, she's like, Todd beat the shit out of me.
Exactly. So why you're stumbling over this which is what this movie kind of makes you do with your brain.
Yeah.
Similar to something like Primer.
Yeah.
Where you're trying to figure out which reality they're in. Obviously, time travel is a little different, but this is, you're jumping around.
He's in a time travel.
To some degree, but the reason it's so hard to explain is because we've seen this scene before already.
Yeah.
But we've only seen the end of it. We haven't seen the beginning.
Yep.
And so the beginning of this, scene that we're reviewing is the extended version.
Yeah, yeah. And that really, it's our first way of realizing how deeply other people are manipulating Leonard and manipulating his illness or his handicap, which is, she's basically like, she wants him to kill this guy Todd, who is her ex, and we later find out is probably the owner of the car that Leonard is driving around. I mean, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah.
And honestly, none of it directly ties into Leonard himself and what he's trying to discover. He basically inadvertently, through trusting people by telling them about this thing that he has, I got to find my wife and I have this illness. He's been wrapped up in this whole other intrigue and drug deals and all these other things by people that, we never even find out like who Joey Pants even is. Like, is he actually an undercover cop? Is he not? Is he some other guy that's manipulating Leonard for some other reason, right? We don't even know that. But we start with Carrie-Ann Moss being like, why did you come in here wearing that suit and driving that car? Obviously, that's not this sequence, but that's how the two of them start talking to each other. And later, supposedly, that might also be wrong.
Exactly.
Who knows?
The fun of
you don't know
no
exactly.
One loves fucking with you.
And so, where we land at though is that she really wants her ex killed, thinks that he's a useful idiot, and when she storms in,
she's like a tornado,
and she starts going around her house grabbing all these things, and you don't know what she's doing yet.
Yeah.
And then comes over to him and starts just talking mad shit to him about his wife, really dialing him up.
Hard-nosed stuff, like calls him out for being stupid, blissfully ignorant.
Yeah,
she's like, I could tell you right now, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I could say whatever I want.
Yeah.
And, maybe you're the way you are because your wife had syphilis and gave it to you, right? Because she's a whore.
She goes deep.
It is like,
she's
whoa,
provoking him harder than most things that I've seen in a movie.
And it's so gross because up to that moment we've liked her character.
Yeah.
And it is such a flip, and it feels like such a betrayal. And finally gets him to start hitting her. At which point she's like, we'll see you in a little bit. And we realize what she's doing.
She goes and sits out in the car.
And that is the creepiest thing. She sits out in the car and she's like making sure that the blood is coming down her face just right.
I totally noticed that. I know I looked at it before, but I thought she was kind of just looking at how it looked, but she was like making sure it looks bad.
It is so creepy because in that moment you're like,
And she's got those like eyes that will just kill you.
Yeah, yeah.
She's got these piercing eyes.
And in that moment, what we realize is when she came in like a tornado, she was getting all the pens.
She stole any utensil that he could write down with. And weirdly, like the door closing is like a trigger for him.
Yeah.
Oh shit, what? Like it's just that one noise or that one thing that distracts him.
Yeah.
And then he's
losing the thread. He's losing the thread, and then it's gone. I'm thinking of another great moment later on when he's like, "Who am I chasing? Oh, it must be that guy." And then he's like, "Oh no, shit, he's chasing me."
And this has been a theme in a lot of the stuff that we've done lately. Weirdly, with Raising Arizona, and we're going to talk about with adaptation, and this movie also. Where would this movie be without the voiceover and knowing what Lenny is thinking this whole time?
Yes.
Because otherwise, this would be a very confusing movie of what it would be a perceived bumbling idiot, like not knowing, like seeming crazy. But if we know in his head, but like this movie would be so much harder to try and explain if you didn't have that because it's so complicated.
And I'll do you one better. Not only is the voiceover necessary, but with the voiceover, we realize he isn't a bumbling idiot. He's actually incredibly adept for these 5-minute windows that he has to try and understand what's happening, make a value assessment about it, and then decide what he's going to do next because he realizes he's running out of time. In that sense, he really is a great kind of noir style detective because he just has these small moments to evaluate and then move on from it. And he has these Polaroids and he's writing stuff on the back of it. It's so good. And in the sequence actually that bumpers both sides of those two sequences that we're talking about is the never answer the phone one where like the whole time he's got the tattoo, it's itching. He's like trying to get it off and all of this. And then when he sees what it says and it says never answer the phone, he's like, who is this? And you're like, you've been talking to this person for 30 minutes. Like, it's such a great, again, like it's such a great vehicle
you can't trust anyone.
Yeah. The inherent suspicion that comes along with these kinds of mystery stories and things like that. But then to just flat out show one of our main characters as being that sociopathic in their desire to manipulate somebody. Normally, if we ever have that in a movie, it's at the very end where we do a flashback.
Great point, yeah.
We don't then hang out with that person for like another hour.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, she comes back in and says, and he's like, what's wrong?
Yeah.
And she's like, what does it look like? He beat the shit out of me. So, and it's really funny. And I didn't notice this, and I probably would have maybe in the past, but I forgot about this, is that at the end of the first scene that we've seen, you know, he's really sweet, and he's like, well, I'm going to go find this guy.
Yeah.
But he kind of like squeezes his hand.
Yeah.
And it's like it kind of hurts for some reason.
Yeah.
But it's because you punched her like 5 minutes ago.
You were doing that to her. I know, it is.
Little things like that, it just makes this movie brilliant. I mean, we could talk in circles about this movie.
Well, and I don't know if you remember this, that the original DVD when it came out had all these extras. Yeah. And
Still have it.
And there's a version you can watch that's chronological.
Yeah.
And boy, does it make everybody look even shittier. Like, it makes people like, when you watch it in chronological order, you're like, oh, this poor idiot.
Oh,
like,
so
oh, this guy. Like, right? Because obviously, to your point, Jonathan Nolan, in writing it, did things in reverse, but also still had to abide by the rules of screenwriting, which is have your arcs and beats in the right place. Mm-hmm. But then he's like, but it's backwards, so that still has to make sense.
And I have to show this one clip of the scene we've already seen, but I'll cut right after.
So I know how it goes in. Yeah. So if you watch it remixed in chronological order, it does front load all of this craziness. I mean, you know, it's.
I love that that's an option.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
it's a different experience.
It's like Irreversible. It's like
sure.
If you watch, I mean, Irreversible is a horrifying only watch once movie anyway.
Yes,
but if you watched it in order, it's so much worse. Mm-hmm. It's so much worse because you start off all sweet and happy, and then your ending is like, holy fuck. And in reverse, you're like, all right, that was still an awful movie, but at least in the end, which is technically the beginning, they're all happy and still friends, and nothing bad has happened.
I just love how flexible art can be sometimes.
Yeah.
Where you can have that as an option.
Yeah.
Like, even something as small as, like, Frank Darabont putting out a second version of The Mist in black and white. Something like that, you know? Like, just being able to have a new experience with a movie you already know you like. So, I don't know. It's cool that that's an option. Of course, those guys are very heady and think about stuff like that when it comes to marketing.
You know, that's a really interesting idea, too, is that we think about subverting expectations and messing with tropes, but we don't ever really think about chronology as being a trope.
Great point.
But it actually is, and when you can subvert that and it still works...
Great point. Love that.
It's really strange. Like, it's a really weird kind of mind melter for sure.
Such a wild movie.
Yeah.
Just one of those that you can just turn on and be like, holy shit, this thing. Like, and I've told you, I saw this at Sundance in 2000 when this came out.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I saw that and Donnie Darko back to back. And I was just like, what did I just watch? Amazing experience. And no one knew who Nolan was at that point either.
Yeah. He was just like this guy who made this weird movie.
And it was just like, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
So, go ahead and join us. Like and subscribe. We do these one scene analyses. Analyses.
I think is
every
right.
other week. We got a whole bunch of them. Go look at our playlist on YouTube. Go subscribe on the podcast.
Yep.
And next week we're going to continue our Nick Cage Fest with Adaptation.
Get ready
for that.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, you guys.